Good evening, everyone. I am Julian Catari from Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico, and I'm with Sacred Blue Heron Woman in Indianola, Oklahoma. This is the 97th version of Divinely Living Conversations, where we share our daily living, our thoughts, our experiences from living in the path that goes back to Aini, to reciprocity, to balance with Mother Earth. And in this session, we have prepared a piece of our very special lab and experimentation and research information that especially Sacred Blue Heron Woman is pioneering on about the many secrets of life, the many secrets of the energy, of the ancestral wisdom that we can study so that we can be guided into this coming back into living into Aini. So how are you, Ingrid?
I am fabulous.
That's amazing. And I am so inspired to begin the session, to tell everyone to feel in a sacred space, in a sacred time, and to open to receive a really precious gift of information that we have prepared. And I haven't said the subject. It's the 8 energies of the Bagua, the 8 energies of the well, what would it be? Of our creation, of our being?
Yeah, energetic. The energetic information that forms. Somehow these are connected to the 8 fields, metabolic fields of embryology, and I have not yet married them.
Okay.
The information I'm sure will come, but how to marry them. But for now, we're just going to go through them.
Alrighty.
To understand the Bagua better, for all those who have purchased a Bagua mirror and operate out of feng shui. So from the initial point of stillness, there was the spark of singing or movement, that gave birth to existence. The singing of Ishmukane Ishpiokok, Lakalona Nugua Pangu, created division. The slide of the yin yang, right? It started with Ishmukane and Ishpiokok, created the slide, the gradient, the slide of yin and yang. And as soon as they came into existence, there was the possibility of movement now between 2 extremes, with the potential for life, for form, and more movement. So at the final stage of creation, we're left with 8 key symbols or representations that represent 8 forms of energetic information. This information lays the energetic root for every event or occurrence in the cosmos. Every action that takes place between the realms of heaven and earth is dependent on the shifting movements of these 8 energies and how they overlay onto each other. So these 8 symbols give us the nature of existence, and when they are combined, we get the nature of time and the manner in which it passes.
Oh, wow. The circle of time. Yeah, I've always considered 8 one of my favorite numbers.
Well, it goes, the golden spiral goes from 3 to 5 to 8. So.
And I've always used the octagon as a symbol of protection. If I'm in a ceremony or a situation where I don't want any spirits bothering me, I'll draw an octagon and go inside of it.
Instead of the circle?
Right, I'll do an octagon. Yeah, I don't do the circle, I'll do the octagon.
Right. So, the passing of time and the existence of our physical realm is a falsity or illusion created within our own minds. But it's a useful illusion that enables us to live, to carry out life, to have experience and interact with others. So the passing of time and events that take place in our life is known as our Ming, or a destiny, that draws the pentagram of our life that we talked about briefly last week with Venus. The nature of our existence as we move from birth to death. That's the pentagram of our life. Moving, we talked about that pentagram also, the 5 stages. So time is simply a form of energy, and energy is fluid in nature. Time is an energy form, and energy can be changed. So we can change the way in which an event unfolds. Consciousness and energy and matter are mutually dependent on one another. They're in an aini relationship. They're in a reciprocal aini relationship. Time, energy, and matter. That's the only way we are in flesh. These 8 forces of energetic information also match the 8 key amino acids that make up our DNA. So the passing of time, which is a form of energy, is rooted in our DNA strands, and our DNA strands spiral around each other, lighting up as it forms a kind of transmitter and receiver for the energy passing through the spiral. Mm-hmm. These 8 forces are also related to the 8 extraordinary vessels of our bodies, being like lakes and marshes in our bodies, and constitute a binding network that gives us nimble movement and springing of our organisms. They are also connected with the 8 immortal caves of your sacrum. There are 8 holes in your sacrum, in everybody's sacrum, that butt plate. 8 holes, those are called immortal caves. I have yet to figure again to wed this all together, but it will come. Mm-hmm. So these 8 forces are also called the Bhagwa, and each represent the nature of a movement of energy within both the microcosm of our bodies and the microcosm of the environment, the macrocosm of the environment, and the macrocosm of the universe. This energy manifests a different result within the energetic realm, which then has a direct effect upon the physical realm. So these 8 forces are in a slide: heaven and earth, water and fire, thunder and wind, and mountain and lake together. So heaven and earth establish our basic place in the cosmos. Heaven is above, the source of weather, the seasons, light, warmth, as well as the sun, moons, and stars by which we measure time. Earth provides us with a place to live, food to eat, and all the riches of the precious minerals, oil, clay, salt, and thousands of other benefits and things. So we live between heaven and earth, and all our needs are fulfilled by them. There is nothing we can manufacture for ourselves without being first gifted to us by heaven and earth. Everything we need is given to us. We, in our naked softness, can do nothing without heaven and earth. So water and fire benefit us in ways that are just as fundamental, because we need both drink and warmth to survive. So water and fire are metaphors for the way energy works. Water is a chilling, downward flowing energy. Fire is a blazing and upward shooting. Water can also be the sign of danger, bogs and quicksand. And fire tends to be the symbol for illumination, enlightenment, and brightness. Thunder represents the arousing force of growth. A seed that sprouts is compared to thunder. A leader calling people to action is compared to thunder. It's also the force of sound itself. It represents the overcoming of inertia. Wind also represents movement in a very different road. Thunder is a mode. Thunder is arousing and forceful. Wind is gentle and steady. Thunder explodes with a great impact, and I can attest to that. Oh my.
Yeah, especially lately.
Yeah, I mean the most ferocious display of orgasmic energy between Mother Earth and Father Sky the other morning was just wow. Wind is thorough permeation. Thunder expands rapidly, wind spreads, it seeps, it interweaves, and it penetrates. So the symbol of wind is associated with wood. The steadily growing tree with its slowly spreading roots and leaves carries the idea of the gentleness of wind. So thunder and wind represent two extremes of growth. Mountain represents stoppage, consolidation, and the solitary. Lake, joyous lake, is level and liquid. The mountain is a consolidation of rock, the lake pools. They symbolize an aspect of human interaction. Where mountain represents the solitary, lake represents the gathering. Where the mountain is the mediator or the person isolated in stubbornness, lake is the marketplace and the festival grounds. It is the delight of friendship. So these 8 trigrams are combined to depict our environment. They model how energy moves. They conceptualize the kinds of growth and address the extremes of social interaction. When we realize that all these 4 pairs are in constant tension and yet at the same time make each other possible, now we can see the living process of change. So let's go through them one at a time. Heaven. From the earliest times, we have looked to heaven as the origin of all things outside ourselves. We regard it as a source of mysteries and see the home of gods in its unlimited vastness. It has always been this and always will be so. Every generation before us has measured time by heaven. While we think we have better ways of navigation and accuracy today, our clocks, our maps, our calendars, our nautical navigation, and astronomical calculations still depend on heaven today. No matter how many computers we build, it still depends on heaven. Heaven provides us the context for our lives. Nothing we have accomplished in our civilization alters the seasons. Nothing changes the solstices and the equinoxes. Nothing we have made can eliminate the need to conform to day and night, or the need to make plans with the weather and the time of year in mind. Nothing can alter that. Heaven is a time and conditions that affect us. Heaven creates the time and circumstances, and we must accept that. At the same time, we must find heaven in ourselves. We create with what heaven gives us, and in so doing, we become heaven ourselves itself. Within the microcosm of our body, this is the generative force that causes growth and the uplift of internal energy towards the head. Philosophically, it manifests as the creative peak of any event. It is the constructive, the strong, the generative, the positive pole. So keywords to meditate on about heaven would be strong, powerful, standing fast, creativity, and the divine. Going into the 8 vessels, extraordinary meridians is another way they're termed. This is the yang wei vessel, arising at the outside of the heel and running up the outside of the body to govern the entire exterior of the body. Mother Earth can do something that no other power can do. She can take the dead and make life again. It's not just the works of humans that depend on Earth. All of nature does too. There is literally nothing you hold, eat, or live in that is not connected to Earth. The virtues she inspires are numerous, and the most prominent are acceptance, support, receptivity, modesty, and perseverance. The greatest she exemplifies is patience. She proceeds on a time span unique to herself. By geological time, the struggles of humans are momentary flickers. By Earth time, all geology has occurred as rapidly as the flashes of the shamaness's many-colored robe. But yet, when we do our carbon testing, it gives us numbers with multiple zeros behind them, right? So heaven may provide the days and the seasons, while Earth teaches us how to make use of that time. She teaches us to be patient, nurturing, supportive, and modest. Everything worth doing takes time to develop. She teaches us to think of what matters against the long perspective of her geologic time. So for the early human consciousness, she was the most stable place in this universe. She stood still year after year while the seasons came and went and the stars and planets whirled around her. Though all of us accept now that the earth, that she moves around the sun, this truth has actually been appropriated in a bodily way by only a tiny segment of our population. Earth's gravitational power holds us, and we can feel the strength of this bond in the pressure felt in our shoulders, along our backs, our buttocks, and our legs, holding us onto Earth. We normally think of this pressure as our weight, but in a scientific sense, no being has any intrinsic weight. So rather, all of our bodies are capable of entering into gravitational interactions. For us, the dominant gravitational interaction we experience is with Mother Earth. She also represents complete stillness. She's the receptive energy of an event which simply allows what will happen to happen. She is trusting and open to the effect of other energies around her, and yet she is not weak. She draws her strength from her ability to react subtly to the events around her, and stillness lies in her profound ability to yield to anything taking place at the moment. She's the most powerful downward pulling energy there is. And once we get that, we're connected. We know we're connected to the force of the planet. And it leads to deep stillness within the center of our minds. So the dynamic between heaven and earth is enveloping and being enveloped, opening and closing. They can also be referred to as the cauldron and the furnace, with Mother Earth being the cauldron and Father Sky being the furnace. So together they are the entire cosmos. And Earth is the yin wave vessel arising from the inside heel and running up the inside of our legs, front of our body, to govern the interior of the entire body. So together, the yang wei and the yin wei vessels are a binding network regulating the flow of energy, of orgone energy, of Reiki, of Qi, whatever you want to call it within us, the orgasmic potential. So water. Lots of meanings, which are like a pentatonic chord, the totality of the scale being its significance. At its root, it means a pit in the earth. One more meaning could also be water splashing over rocks in a ravine. So to drink, we must climb down into a dark, slippery pit. The next note in the chord is how water remains uncompromised by danger. So it symbolizes being true to oneself. It also represents the downward flow, darkness, cold, liquidity. She also shows eternal integrity. Whether it's a single drop or a vast ocean, ice or steam, water will always reform itself into its purest state. Third note on the chord of water is remembering that all life evolved from water. The fourth note is that water can help us heal. And the highest note, the fifth, the pentatonic, is where we examine the virtues of water that are worth emulating. Noble persons seek to be as fearless as water. They spread their personalities instead of holding rigidly to one doctrine. They change as quickly as water and adapt to any circumstance as water fills any void and yet remains its integrity. The water, or Kan, Gua, is often known as the Gua, or hexagram of danger, because she represents the risky nature of an event taking place at this current moment. It has the potential to change into that which has a positive outcome or a negative outcome, depending on our actions at the present time. It also shows the movement of energy around the body in a cyclical fashion. So philosophical words for meditation, contemplation are water, of course, danger, risk, fear, and reservoir. This is known as the Dai vessel, encircling the body like a girdle. It binds together all of the vessels, preventing them from being misaligned. This is typically called the belt meridian, and it runs around from our lower, it circles our entire abdomen and back like a girdle. She is the overall commander of all these 8 channels. So her partner, fire. As water is the beginning of life, fire is the beginning of civilization. And every time we work with a force of nature, we must be careful that it does not destroy us. Water can drown us and flood our fields. Fire can burn us, blast our homes, and incinerate our forests. Yet fire and water can both be channeled. They cannot be tamed, they can be channeled. Grandfather, Sun, and our star sisters and brothers are orbs of fire. Fire represents brilliance, insight, intelligence. It also symbolizes the heart, the creative and intuitive powers that emanate from the heart. Light can scatter, so it can be fractured into different colors. Our concentration can flicker in the same way. However, concentrated light is a powerful force, as we see in lasers. Our heart is our hearth. So if we are to realize our own brilliance, we must constantly tend our heart, our fire, which is Vesta, goddess Vesta, planet Vesta, or Hestia, tending the fire of hearth and home. This is a powerful energy expanding outwards from the center of the body, relying on there being a point of stillness from which this expansion can take place. Within the body, it is a warming movement. And I can tell you from starting with the Shaolin Temple, I'm feeling fire expanding outward from the center of my body. Absolutely. These stances, warrior stances, make me hotter than shit. Oh, yeah. So philosophically, it's the symbol for realization, the divine understanding that comes from connecting to the still core of an energetic event. So the words for contemplation are, of course, fire, illumination, realization, spiritual, and then emotional. This is the Tong vessel, the sea of the channels and the vessels. It's also called the sea of blood. It arises with the Ren vessel within the gestational membranes in the lower abdomen. Ascending, it runs inside the spinal column, all the way up into the brain. So then thunder. Every song starts with a beat. Whether it's soft or dramatically martial, the first note is arousing from silence. Thunder reminds us that change begins from sudden initiative. It takes great force to break inertia. Thunder awes us and calls us to reverence. It indicates the beginning of change. Changes are cyclical, and all cycles must have beginnings. Thunder comes each year, and each storm is familiar because we have experienced storms before. Their trembling registers as muscle memory in our very limbs, yet at the same time, every storm is different, and the havoc it may cause as well as the reactions it stirs will vary. Each season occurs in perfect order, yet each season is new in itself. All events are both cyclical repetition while still unique in occurrence. Thunder teaches us to search for new beginnings within myriad circles. Thunder can also be compared to a forest. A forest grows by a yang force, and roots look like lightning forking in the night dark soil. Thunder is our first grunt as we put our shoulder to the wheel. It's the instant we lift our hands to task. It's the joining of hydrogen and oxygen to make water. It's the energy released when atoms cleave. Seeking to learn about our hidden impetus gives us the mental force of thunder. This is about sudden beginnings. It's the symbol for the original spark that gives birth to something new. It is this spark that forms a catalyst for anything that takes place, both within the macrocosm of the wider universe and the microcosm of our own bodies. It's the sudden energy which bursts out of us, causing chi to move quickly throughout the rest of the system. Philosophically, it's the initiator of change, the beginning of new processes. And this is the Du vessel, the director general of the Yang vessels. It's also called the Sea of Yang vessels. It originates again within the gestational membranes below the kidneys, circles the pelvic bones and genitals and travels up the spine on the outside of the spine. The chung goes on the inside, so that the chung, the water and fire, thunder and wind. No, that's that right. Fire and thunder are tied together, traveling up our spine, but yet thunder is tied to wind. So, wind. Think of a weaving loom with 4 hands. The 4 hands implies a weaver working twice as fast. The fingers touch every part of the fabric, pulling it into a magnificent design. This is the idea of wind. It can be as soft as cloth, weaving in and out of spaces, and it penetrates as threads penetrate a body of fabric. Where thunder is shocking and arousing, wind is a gentle influence. It transforms from an ongoing and interweaving pattern. But once set in motion, the blowing of wind cannot be stopped. We cannot change the wind, we can only engage it. Wind concentrated and amplified can erode cliffs and uproot trees and bring them down, as I've seen well. It also represents wood, as the roots of wood weave into the earth. Wind can be seen as the warp, trees as the weft. Since thunder is seen as forests, so wind and thunder represents 2 kinds of growth. The wind, gentle and permeation, the thunder, explosive and sudden. Wind, on its gentle and penetrating current, 1,000 forms of life, fine movement in the greatest of tapestries. It is a spiraling energy which moves through the joints of our body, carrying energetic information as it goes. There is no part of the body that this energy does not reach, meaning it can cause great harm or do great good, depending on how we relate to this energy. It's known as the penetrative gua, reaching into everything, everywhere. So philosophically, it represents the moving information of the energy of heaven, the energy of heaven acting on an event. It's the messenger of the Tao. It's Mercury. And that which unites the inner and outer worlds. So the words to contemplate are wind, penetration, movement, adaptation, and malleable. And this is the Ren vessel, the official controller of all yin vessels, or the sea of yin vessels. It traverses the abdomen and runs up the front of the body. Mountain is unmoving, a lofty upthrusting of rock. It separates one plane from another. Its space is wide, occupying hundreds of square miles many times, while its peak is so high that the trees die from the altitude and can grow no higher, leaving only ice and snow at the crown. The wind as supreme, or the mountain as supreme barrier, symbolizes limits and stillness, cessation. Sometimes it might mean a walling off of movement. Other times it might mean a culmination or solidification of movement. Like a volcano rising from the folding of the earth's crust, the mountain is a petrification of force. Heaven and earth move, yet we only see solid things. So we must understand that all molecules and atoms are bound together only temporarily. Even though some bonds may outlast a human lifespan, they will eventually break. So we can speak of constant flux and still include solidity in our contemplation of change. That's the mountain. Mountain represents 2 types of behavior, meditation and anger. Both have to do with being solitary. One is solitude for a spiritual purpose. The other is solitude that degenerates into alienation. Both have to do with stoppage. So we need to apply the lesson of the mountain to be the phenomenon of the mountain itself. In other words, we must limit even limits. Endless spiritual pursuit is not encouraged when there is so much more to service. Anger, the way of the warrior, also has its place, yet we must be mindful of what that place is. Every mountain has its summit. The proper understanding of how to move and stop, how to be flowing and then firm, is the peak of moving and stilling at the right times. Mountain is the abrupt end of the unfolding event. It's the culmination of a process taking place. So philosophically, it can also represent the ability to stand fast against pressure without bending. It is the potential for resilience within an event and the person experiencing the event taking place. Within the body, it feels like slowing or stopping of a movement or energy. This can take place in starts and stops, a stuttering feel. It tends to move downward within the body towards the ground. So the words are mountain, stillness, core strength, ending, conclusion, and stopping. This is the yang chow vessel, if that's how it's pronounced, arising from the outer heel and rising the outside of the body to govern the yang aspects of the entire body. Lake, in contrast to the mountain, as concentration culminating in solidity, the lake is concentration through pooling. Where the mountain is proud and upthrusting with a danger of excessive isolation, the lake is gathering through lowness. It is where waters run together. Wherever waters form a lake, life springs from it. Gathering together in friendship, coupling together in love, even the uniting of body fluids and lovemaking and sex are like the lake, and so this is a pleasure place. When essences are pulled together, there are chemical reactions leading to new emergence. Exchange has occurred. A lake can also represent a marsh or a bog, and there the image of exchange expands. Thousands of birds stop at a wetland during their migration. They eat the insects and plants. In turn, their trampling and droppings contribute to the fertility. On a social level, the lake as a symbol of exchange reminds us of the pleasures of festivals and marketplaces, reminding us that there is a legitimate place for joy. We study change so that our exchanges with others will be joyful. This is a soft moving energy that permeates the body, moving subtly, yet with an underlying strength. It is not without a certain movement of force. So philosophically, it is known as the joyous gua, representing the natural unfolding of events in line with the will of the Tao. It is this union with the underlying forces of the cosmos that gives lake its inner strength. So the words are lake, joy, storage, disintegrating, and dispersal. And this is the yin chow vessel arising from the inside of the ankle, running up the center of the body to govern all yin aspects of the entire body. And that's all I have.
Well, you covered the 8 elements. Kind of, I see them as elements as well. And I want to say that I should be familiar. I mean, to me, this is such an important lesson because I'm drawing right now the I Ching, which is a task that I'm doing in unison with you, and so knowing about these 8 forces and learning about them and listening to these so beautiful words and descriptions, it's really amazing for me. It's pretty powerful. And now I want to say that all of this elemental knowledge that we share with folks, it's really important that we live it, that we're in that, and that you're doing that with the thunder. I mean, that was such a day that you had, right, Ingrid, with the thunder and the elements, and it's almost like they're teaching you, they're coming to you. I mean, these lessons about the 8 forces and about the Venus was giving us lessons, and it's also alive. It's not so far from just a intellectual theoretical approach and so much into a living, experiencing way of sharing it. And I think we're doing that, even though it seems so wordy and just intellectual, because obviously we're doing just a video here. We just have a video, but But these words can't come like they come if you're not living in
Right.
the experience.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It will be, and it will be even more amazing when I can wed it or tie it together with the 8 metabolic fields of the embryo.
Oh,
How
wow.
I had a hard enough time challenging enough time trying to marry them together with the 8 vessels, but the 8 vessels then, which are not actual, there's nothing, no MRI or CT scan that could show you these 8 vessels. They're just there. These 8 vessels have got to be tied to the 8 metabolic fields somewhere. But that will come with depth.
Right. That's so cool. And so we went from the 5 of the Venus, the pentagram, which draws a lot of learning from the very recent change in the Venus cycle, the beginning of the 8-year cycle for Venus.
Well, she's going through the meta. She's coming, if she's not in the meta underworld, so to speak, with grandfather son, she will be in the next couple of days.
Okay.
They're lining up very, very quickly.
Okay. And then we went from that to the 8 forces, the 8 elements, the
8 forces. So the next one is, following the spiral, the next is the 13. So we're going to go to the 13 meridians.
Okay, you answered my question before I made it.
Yeah. Next week we'll go into the 13 meridians.
13 meridians. Would that have any? Sorry about that's the noise of. You know what that is? That's a car spraying mosquito, some type of mosquito
Poison.
Poison, yeah.
It's basically poison.
Right. So so sorry for that. So 13 meridians, would that have anything to do with the chakras?
No.
No? Okay.
We should have, you know what? Thank you about that. I should have added I will for future add the chakras to this because there's 8 chakras. So the chakras need to go in here.
Okay. Wow.
For future reference.
13 meridians, what are they related to?
They are the energy, the paths of Reiki, of the organ, the orgasmic energy.
Okay.
Their orgasmic potential.
Okay. Alrighty, so let's make, and it's coming close. It would be the 98th. This is 97th, so 98th. Close to the 100th conversation and the session we've had so far. So let's leave that invitation made for next week at 8:30. Like always, no change in that. And I hope people can. I was gonna say profit from this, but in a wholesome sense, right? Wholesome sense.
Yeah. I didn't even think about adding the chakras here, and I must have talked really fast.
Well, then we can have another session for that.
Well, yeah, we can. So next week we'll go to the meridians, and then we'll see. We might backtrack into the chakras.
Okay.
We'll see how spirit guides me, how I'm guided.
Okay. Well, that's beautiful. So let's not close anything and just continue next week. And with that, we'll say, please connect with us, share anything. And if you want to join Aloha I Need All Living, well, you can do that. You'll find links everywhere. And thank you, folks, for being here and listening to this. And see you next time, I guess.
Yep.
We'll stop the live stream.
Yeah.